places where you can glimpse underground Seattle above ground. This is no joke. There really is an underground Seattle. A tour leaves 3 times a day from Doc Maynard's in Pioneer Square.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Underground Tours. My name is Kevin Braid. I'm going to be one of 2 guides taking you on the tour today. What we try to do is start out inside of Doc Maynard's here with a brief introduction to get an idea of how we got the underground. Then we're going to break down into 2 groups and head out down into 3 different areas that we use on the tour. The first thing that I'm required to do as part of our tour is introduce our boss, Mr. Bill Speidel. He is the man who began the tours back in 1965.
Bill, what is underground Seattle?
What happened was that the city was at a lower level. In 1889, the entire town burned down. They raised the streets in the lower part of town, which is Pioneer Square, anywhere from 8 to 35 feet. And it was cheaper to leave the sidewalks hollow than it was to fill them in. And 80 years or more later, we were trying to promote Pioneer Square, and that was about 1965. We kept wandering around these old abandoned sidewalks, and the public curiosity was out of this world. That's so we started the Underground Tours, and it's a great place. Now you walk through about 8 acres. Well, there's 8 acres of hollow sidewalks in Pioneer Square today, and you can wander through most of them. The ones for the Underground Tour are safe.
Okay, folks, now here we are inside of a building that looks remarkably like a dirty old basement. As I was trying to explain, this is the original ground level of the city, and we can best prove that by the fact that there are window frames here on the north wall of the building. When this building was built in 1889, the street was at this level where we are today. Only after the building had been built did the city raise the street and cover this level. We're in the Korn building, spelled K-O-R-N. Upstairs you had offices. Down here you had Moses Korn's Emporium.
We like to say a walk through Seattle's past. The New York Times referred to the Underground Tours as the most authentically crummy tour in the United States. What you do is you see those old busted windows, you see the gaps, you see the storefronts the way they were.
In the back of the room we have a commode that's been raised up on a platform. They would raise the toilets up to try to keep them from spitting up when the tide came in. And I don't really know if that worked every time or if it was a perfect technique, but you find raised up toilets in most buildings.
Most of the time, people think it's absolutely smashing. Maybe we do 100,000 people a year. We're the 2nd biggest tourist attraction to the Space Needle, for God's sake.
Folks, here we're right under the corner of 1st Avenue and Yesler Way. Note the streets are lower here. That's because we're nearer to the water. The very deepest parts are way back in Chinatown. Now, right here we have one of the skylights. Skylights are found in just about any good-sized town you care to look in. The first skylights were a sheet of glass sitting on metal rods. They broke rather easily and attracted congregations of young men who stood here to enjoy the view. Okay, folks, up on the wall, a couple of old wooden pipes. The first thing is that a wooden pipe is very common. You can find them all over the place. The connecting pieces are hand-carved wood, and this system ran above ground on stilts. It came from a spring in the hill down to where we are. The water was lousy. It was brown, it was murky, and it tasted like sulfur. The owner of the system was Henry Yesler.
San Francisco wrote its rascals into its history while Seattle was writing its rascals out of its history. And I'm writing the rascals back in, and they're interesting guys, you know. At the time that my man Doc Maynard, and I had no brief at all for Doc Maynard when I started researching him, at the time he was trying to make Seattle the most important town. There were 25 other guys trying to make 25 other towns the most important towns in the Pacific Northwest. He did it, and Seattle's been doing it over and over and over again ever since.
We have this tile, and on the right of it, it says Lady Barbers. Now, lady barbers could have been legitimate. It's possible, but entirely improbable. It's more than likely that this was a front for some other illegal activities. It's conceivable it could have been for prostitution, a clip joint, so to speak. It's more likely that it was related to a gambling hall that used to be down here, a Chinese lottery, which is a game like Keno, really, and also there used to be an opium den in this building.
Well, there's a lot of belly laughs between you and the end of the tour, and it costs you $250.
Bill Speidel is the author of another book called Sons of the Prophets, which he claimed was once the most stolen book from the Seattle Public Library. If you're interested in a whole day of historical Seattle touring, we might suggest the harbor tour down along the waterfront from the boat. And there's another transportation attraction soon to be on the waterfront. Here's our urban spaceman, Pat Burke, with that story.
Later this month, the Central Waterfront business owners will make the final decision